How would you like to learn how to make a delicious hush puppy? Today I'm going to share with you my secret recipe. Now some of you don't even know what a hush puppy is. Let's find out. Welcome to All Things Food with John Woods. I love to cook, but I cook to love. So let's talk food. Hush puppies are as varied as there are cooks. And this is a simple recipe that I came up with many years, 30 years ago actually. So with a really good hush puppy, you have two elements of ingredients. You have your dry ingredients, which would include self-rising cornmeal. I use the white cornmeal, you can use the yellow. You use all-purpose self-rising flour, and then sugar. You can adjust the sugar according to your needs, and then just a little bit of baking powder. I think that gives you a little lighter hush puppy. Be very careful not to use too much. Over here on the other hand, you have your wet ingredients. You have your milk. We used buttermilk today because we wanted to kick it up a little notch. Some people use beer. I don't prefer doing that, but some people do it. I think it changes the hush puppy. Then you have your onions and jalapenos and eggs. You mix all those dry ingredients together. You mix all the wet ingredients together, and then you combine the two and you stir it until you get this. That's a cup of sugar, 4 cups of cornmeal, and I use again white cornmeal, and then 2 cups of flour. And I found in my recipe, no matter if I'm making a small batch or a real big batch for several hundred people, I use a 1-to-2 ratio between cornmeal and flour. So if I have 20 cups of cornmeal, I'm going to have 10 cups of flour. And then I'm going to put just a little bit of this baking powder in there, not a whole lot, just a little bit. And then we're going to mix all these ingredients together. Now typically, if I'm making a lot of hush puppies, I'm going to run these through a processor because I like them a little finer. I like to get a little more juice extracted out of those onions, but not just terribly fine. I don't want to puree those things, but we'll just use a little knife there today. Put in our little happy buttermilk over here. And we call for 4 eggs on this recipe, and I'm going to have to confess to you, I used an egg a minute ago and I forgot that I had to make this recipe. So we're going to use 3. I think it'll be just fine. This is not rocket science. It's not a matter of life and death. So we're going to mix all these happy ingredients together. And look at that buttermilk, how it just kind of thickens up a little bit. And so we're going to pour all of our wet ingredients in. Mix all this together. Now, I've made tens of thousands of pounds of hush puppies over the years, and that's not an exaggeration at all. And I can make this same recipe 10 times, and it's not going to come out the same way every time. Now, why is that? I have no earthly idea, other than the cornmeal's processed a little differently. Humidity may have a factor. I really don't know. So I see these are going to be already kind of dry, so I feel I'm going to need to add a little bit more buttermilk to these. I wish I had that egg, but I don't have it today. So but we're going to make do. We don't want to let anything upset our parade here, so I'm going to add a little bit of milk. Now, how did the hush puppy get its name? Well, legend has it that back many years ago on the plantation that the chefs or the cooks would take little pieces of cornmeal and deep fry them and throw them out to the yelping dogs. And they'd toss it out there, and that dog would reach over and grab that little piece of hot cornbread or whatever it was, and they would say, "Hush puppy," and that the little piece of fried cornmeal would satisfy the hunger pangs of the dogs. And so the hush puppy became very prominent in catfish cooking. And so at a lot of restaurants you'll go in and they'll give you a big steaming hot basket of hush puppies. And I guess it's the owner's way of saying to the stop the yelping of the customers. Because they come in, they're hungry, they're ready to eat. Well, here, eat some of these hush puppies and shut up. That's what they're basically trying to tell you. So, and we did that in our restaurant. People loved them. So, anyway, these are turning out perfectly mixed up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let them rise. These are better if you can make them a day ahead, stick them, cover them up, put them in the refrigerator. They're going to rise up a little bit, and when they do, I'm going to pat them back down. But you can freeze these things. They'll stay frozen for quite a while. So I've told you the history of the hush puppy, but how did this recipe develop? Well, I owned a restaurant in Horn Lake, Mississippi back several years ago. We opened in 1991. And the very first weekend, one of my waitresses, Lisa, came over to the window where I was cooking the catfish in a little 64 square foot utility closet that had been converted into a kitchen. And she was just weeping. I said, Lisa, what's wrong? She said, see that man over that table? And she pointed to a gentleman that I knew. She said, he told me that I could take this hush puppy and cram it up the south end of a northbound donkey. She was quite offended, and well, I was too. So I went out there and I said, sir, I said, hey, Ray, what's the problem? He said, you can take this hush puppy and I'm going to tell you what to do with it. He said, this is absolutely the worst hush puppy I've ever had in my life. He got a few laughs. I said, Ray, you come back next week. I will guarantee to you that I will give you the very best hush puppy you've ever had in your life. That was a Saturday night. Sunday morning, I went into my office or into the restaurant. I had a little, I wish I had the tub to show you. And I worked all day on recipes, hush puppy recipes, one after the other, after that. I was so tired of hush puppies. I'd make a little, cook a little, make a little, cook a little. And then I finally came up with this recipe that I thought was a pretty darn good hush puppy. So Ray comes in the next Friday night. He sits at his table, and I proudly walk out there with a big basket of hush puppies because I wanted to tell him to hush. I said, Ray, here, try these things. He ate them. He said, these are the best hush puppies I've ever had in my life. And so that's the recipe I've been using for 30 years. I've literally cooked these for people around the world, tens of thousands of these things. And I love it when people come to me, whether it's in Canada, in Washington, D.C., in California, Texas, or wherever, Florida, and they ask me the question, what is a hush puppy? I'm always very happy to tell them the story about the hush puppy and to give them an example. Now, I told you these hush puppies, after we leave them sit for a little while, they're going to rise up. Look at that, how they're coming up. I'm going to take my little spoon and I'm going to just pat these things down because I don't want them to get too crazy here. So I'm going to just pat them down. We're going to go ahead and cook these up in just a few minutes. Temperature control, again, critical. And we're going to cook these hush puppies in 325 degree oil using a number 70 scoop. 325 will get it cooked just perfectly on the outside as well as the inside without overcooking one or the other. Pretty much you just put that scoop on your bowl, get it a level spoonful, drop those in there. I always like to drop a few just to see how my hush puppies are doing. And don't drop them on top of one another. You get this big basket, spread them out in there. Because if you drop them on top of one another before they solidify, they're going to stick together. So we don't want to do that. Now, I love doing hush puppies, and when I get going, my employees have timed me doing 100 of these in 1 minute. These things are floating really nice. Now, what a lot of people will do at this point, and don't do this, they'll drop those in there, then for some reason with fish or hush puppy, they just want to shake that basket, shake it, shake it, shake it. Do not shake it. Let it cook for about a minute. And then after it cooks for about a minute, just give it a gentle pop and those hush puppies that are on the bottom will come to the top. And every once in a while, just take the basket, swirl it around a little bit so you get an even cooking. These will take about 2 minutes, roughly 2 minutes. I'm going to give you a little secret. This is the most difficult thing to do when you're doing a catfish fry, keeping up with the hush puppies, because sometimes you have to cook hundreds of these things. Cook these things, par cook. So cook them to about 80-85% doneness. Pull them out, set them on a sheet pan, let them drain, let them cool down, do whatever you want to with them. And when you have the fish fried, just before you're ready to serve those rascals, take them, put them in the basket, and drop them back down in the oil for just a few, maybe 30 seconds. They'll be just like you just dropped them, and you'll stay ahead on your hush puppies. People will be very happy for that. Give you another little secret. When I go home and I want to cook catfish at home, I'm not going to take all this stuff with me. I'm going to cook my catfish here, my hush puppies here. I'm going to take these little rascals home, stick them in the oven. They're going to be perfectly fine. So that's just a little secret to make your hush puppy cooking a little easier. They look done to me. Pour those little rascals out there. And that's what you call a perfect hush puppy. And there you have it, the perfect little hush puppy. I hope that you'll cook these little things and that you'll love to cook and you'll cook to love.